Here's everything you need to know about the Night of the Seven Kingdoms. Game of Thrones ended in 2019. It was the premier TV drama of the 2010s and the most successful show in HBO's history. So, there was no way they were going to let it lie. Since then, the network has aired 2 seasons of a prequel series called House of the Dragon, which has amassed a fan base of its own. And later this year, they'll premiere yet another Game of Thrones prequel show, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. When is A Night of the Seven Kingdoms set? House of the Dragon is set around 150 years before Game of Thrones, during a period of internecine violence called the Dance of the Dragons, when rival factions of the Targaryen dynasty fought each other for the Iron Throne. Although that drama is still playing out, the dance will end with far fewer dragons flying the skies above Westeros. Recall that in Game of Thrones, dragons have been gone for so long that no one alive remembers them. A Night of the Seven Kingdoms is set about 90 years before Game of Thrones. There are no more dragons in Westeros, but there are old-timers hanging around who remember when they filled the skies. The Targaryen family is still in charge of the Seven Kingdoms. Overall, it's a more peaceful time for the continent than either in Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon. So, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms is set many decades after the end of House of the Dragon, but many decades before the start of Game of Thrones. With that in mind, don't expect any crossovers. That said, there are actually a couple characters who are ancient by the time of Game of Thrones who are just little kids here, like Maester Aemon and Walder Frey, but there's no guarantee they'll show up. A Night of the Seven Kingdoms is based on a series of novellas written by George R.R. Martin, the author behind A Song of Ice and Fire and Blood, which HBO adapted as Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon respectively. The novellas follow a very tall and kind of dumb, depending on who you ask, knight named Ser Duncan the Tall and his precocious and diminutive squire, known as Egg. Together, they travel the Seven Kingdoms, helping people and having adventures. If you think that sounds a little smaller in scale than what Game of Thrones fans are used to, you're right. Martin's tales of Dunk and Egg novellas are more intimate and altogether lighter than his more epic stories. There will still be plenty of fighting and scheming and backstabbing, but A Night of the Seven Kingdoms will represent a new angle on Westeros. Deadline's Max Goldbart, who got to watch bits of the show early, put it like this: A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, meanwhile, was displayed in all its humor and irreverence. The prequel takes a somewhat different tone to House of the Dragon and the original Game of Thrones. Martin has written 3 Dunk and Egg novellas so far: The Hedge Knight, The Sword Shield, and The Mystery Knight. The first season of A Night of the Seven Kingdoms will cover the events of The Hedge Knight, where a newly independent Dunk will enter himself in a tourney in the Reach. There he'll meet Egg for the first time, as well as encounter a number of Targaryens who are also on the tourney grounds. Tanzel, a puppeteer hoping to entertain people who have come for the tourney, also plays an important role. Who's in A Night of the Seven Kingdoms? Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon have sprawling casts. A Night of the Seven Kingdoms also has its fair share of actors, but things ultimately always come back to Dunk and Egg. Here's everyone we know so far who will appear in the new show and who they're playing. Not many of the actors in here are big names, but HBO shows have a way of taking little-known actors and turning them into stars, so who knows what will happen after the season is over. The only actor on this list I recognized was Finn Bennett, who did a fantastic job in True Detective. Night Country as Aerion Brightflame Targaryen. He has a bit of a Targaryen look to him, doesn't he? Should the show get a second season, we expect Peter Claffey and Dexter Solancel to be the only actors to carry on, with the supporting cast being filled out with new performers playing new characters. And that would happen again if the show gets a third season. That would take HBO to the end